Hello and welcome to Parrot Analytics' fifth annual Global Demand Awards, where we highlight the most in-demand TV series, movies, and talent of 2022. I am joined today by Chris McGurk, Chairman and CEO of Cinedime. Chris, thanks for taking the time to speak with us, man. Really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Of course. Okay, so just to start off, you started your career, you were in accounting at Pepsi when Michael Eisner brought you over to Disney. What convinced you to make such a dramatic industry shift from product sales to entertainment?
Well, first of all, I wasn't in accounting. I've seen that written up, but I was the CFO of one of Pepsi's divisions and had been run strategic planning there and had actually been in marketing and sales. So I had a pretty good overview of Pepsi, but I'd been there for 6 or 7 years. This was in the 80s. Completely boring business, a great business, but a boring business. Okay. And one of the jobs that I had when I was there, I was actually the competitive analyst for Pepsi. I used to follow all things Coca-Cola. And for a while, they owned Columbia Studios back in the 80s. And I was really fascinated as I got into it, doing my research and everything and preparing reports for management. And I'd always been fascinated by the movie business. But I think when it came down to, when I met with the Disney people and they recruited me kind of out of the blue to be the CFO of the studio, they were in a business that actually had an impact on the popular culture and people's lives and affected their emotions. The movies and TV series made them think, made them laugh, made them cry. And I really liked that visceral connection with an audience that you weren't getting at Pepsi. And I think that's what drove me to come out to Disney in the late 80s.
Definitely more of an emotional response from your consumers that you're selling directly to than Pepsi. No disrespect to the soft drink business. I'm a big fan of it myself.
Yeah. And the other thing, it's never boring. This business is never boring. Look at the last year. There's always something new. There's always technological change. You can't really get in a rut and it keeps you on your toes. And I really love that.
I think executives after 2022 would wish it would be a little bit more boring, but that's, like you said, that's what makes it interesting. So since 2011, you've led Cinedime, which has really shifted from, a tech company putting independent movies in theaters and helping theaters transition to digital projection into a multi-purpose streaming company. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the motivation and goals behind that company transition.
Yeah, I mean, it was clear when I got to the company that we had to leverage the assets that we had, which was a history of being pioneers in digital technology and transforming theaters, and also great relationships in the industry. But that was a sunset business. Once you've digitized every theater, you're done. So it was, how do you take that technological expertise and the great relationships that we had forged in doing that rollout, which really benefited the business, the digital projection rollout, and leverage it into a growth business. And it was very clear at that point that the future of digital technology was in the home, not theaters. That's where the growth was coming from. And that's what motivated our shift. It took us a little bit longer than I thought. It always takes longer, particularly as a public company, to turn the battleship. But now I think we've clearly arrived, and we like to think of ourselves as really the leading independent streaming and technology company in the entertainment business.
Yeah, I mean, that's exemplified by a recent hit, Terrifier 2. It's one of the best box office stories in recent memory, made on a budget of just 250 grand. It's grossed nearly 13 million. It's in the top 2% of all movie titles in the US over the last 30 days, according to Parrot Analytics data. And it's so successful that during its first month of release, Terrifier 1 was the 9th most in demand in the US in that 4-week span. Now it is streaming on Screambox, which is Cinedime's horror-focused service. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your company's focus on enthusiast fandoms and how you feel that approach fits in today's obsession with scale and reaching the widest possible audience.
We think it fits perfectly because we're not competing with those big general entertainment services. Our 30-channel portfolio that's very focused on these enthusiast verticals like horror that you mentioned, and anime, and independent films and family titles. Again, it's perfectly complementary to Netflix and Hulu and Disney Plus and the big streamers for every platform. And these enthusiast audiences are really being underserved on the general entertainment channels. I think we did some research, and less than 10% of all the films and TV programs ever made are actually up on the top 6 streamers. Okay. And what we found is that these enthusiasts, as opposed to wanting to watch, the latest movie that came out 6 months ago or whatever, they just care about having a chance to discover new content in the verticals that they're interested in. That could be a horror film from 1983. And they want to discover it and talk to their community of friends about it, be the first ones to discover it. And that's what we're taking advantage of with our portfolio approach for these enthusiast channels. Again, we've got 30 of them right now. We're taking a true portfolio approach to the business that very few other companies can do at this point. And it's given us a lot of diversification as well. And we think we can build a giant business, with our approach, again, because we're not competing with the big streamers and because there's a huge demand for these channels. Who would have thought that the Bob Ross channel that we have, would have like 8 to 10 million monthly viewers. And it's all content from the late 80s and 90s. And it continues to grow and be one of our most successful channels. So we're going to keep, we just announced a deal with GoPro the other day to launch a GoPro channel. And we think that's going to have an enormous audience, out there as well. So we think the enthusiast approach is the right approach. And we're going to continue to focus on it. I mean, look at Crunchyroll. Crunchyroll sold for more than $1 billion to Sony a couple of years ago. And I think they had 1 million or 2 million subscribers. Well, if we've got 10 or 15 Crunchyrolls, I think we're going to be in pretty good shape.
I'm glad that you mentioned your portfolio of services because it feeds really well into my next question. You guys launched Cineverse in September. It couples together your 30+ FAST channels, your VOD services, and focuses on independent cinema. How important do you think a bundle of services like that, instead of just one single product, is for media in 2023 and beyond?
We like bundling, obviously. Our goal has been, to find the biggest audience possible. And if we have to bundle to do it, we're going to do it. But we think Cineverse really is going to be our flagship brand now. Because as you mentioned, we're going to have all of our channels in Cineverse ultimately. We'll put third-party channels in as well. Our library of content is now up to over 60,000 pieces of content. We did a deal with Film Hub that we announced recently. We literally want to have hundreds of thousands of pieces of content and dozens of channels up on Cineverse. And then what we really think is going to set Cineverse apart is we have our own streaming technology, which we think is our secret sauce. And
we're going to come back to that in this.
Okay, but with Matchpoint, which is our technology, and we think it's as good as anything in the business. Okay, and it's undervalued, in terms of people looking at our company. I think Disney bought the remaining 20% of BAMTech for $900 million. And I'll say, I think our technology is better than BAMTech. But with Matchpoint, what we're doing is we're working to develop the best interface, search algorithm, AI-based discovery, so that enthusiasts can come onto Cineverse and go across all of our channels and all of our content and basically create their own channel. And do it in a smarter and better way than anybody else. We did a deal with a company called Catch that we announced a few months ago, and they are a technology company that was formed by the senior engineer who developed the Pandora genomic algorithm to develop your own playlist. And so that's where we're heading. And I think our technology is going to be the secret sauce to take our bundle and take Cineverse and really separate it from the herd. So we're very excited.
Yeah, as a user of Cineverse, I can attest to how integrated it is with personal curation. And everyone watching this, I swear I don't get a cut. This is not a paid ad, but I can, really vouch for the service. I think it's a great job of putting power back into the consumer. And you mentioned Matchpoint. I was going to ask about it later, but let's bring it up now. Do you think owning streaming technology in-house, like Cinedime does with Matchpoint, has become an overlooked element in this industry? Because I feel as if it offers some really easy pivot points and benefits that has become lost as a lot of companies are continuing to outsource streaming technology and have to look elsewhere.
I think it's a huge part of the future of the streaming business. and owning your own technology and controlling it gives you a huge advantage over the rest of the herd. I was talking to somebody who helped develop one of the big streaming services the other day, and he was saying that streaming technology has become a commodity. And I hope everybody else believes that. And because not only, to us, does it save us an enormous amount of operating costs by having our own technology, and gives us an opportunity to go out and get third-party business. And we're going to have a bunch of announcements in that regard. But, we have a 50-person engineering team over in India, Cinedime, India. And what they're doing is we announced Matchpoint 2.0 a few months ago. They're working on Matchpoint 3.0, as I said, in developing the best algorithms, the best discovery technology, the best AI, to really create a competitive advantage for us versus everybody else, and let them all think that it's a commodity, and let them all focus on the content wars and thinking that they have to invest in content and not technology. And hopefully we can come in and kind of wow the world, with our user interface and with our algorithms and all that. So that's why I think Matchpoint is so hugely important to us specifically, and why technology shouldn't be overlooked as a huge potential competitive advantage in the business.
And I think that bears itself out on your service. Every time you've talked about it here, but every time you announce a new partnership, a new collaboration, that new content or that new channel is integrated incredibly quickly and usually very seamlessly. And that's not always the case for major new content arms springing out of existing tech platforms.
Yeah, I think Bloody Disgusting is an example. We acquired Bloody Disgusting, and we launched the Bloody Disgusting channel, I think, a couple of years ago. But we did the deal with them, I think, on August 1st. And we had their channel up and running before Halloween. I don't think anybody else can do that. And it's because we control the technology and it works. And all the platforms are incredibly comfortable with it.
Now, earlier you mentioned you have over 60,000 film and TV series in your library. In an entertainment era that has become defined by splashy, expensive, exclusive originals, what value do you think legacy titles still hold in this marketplace?
Well, I think, as I said before, I think given our enthusiast approach to the business, having a library and as many choices as possible for enthusiasts in the genre that they're enthused about is a huge competitive advantage. And the big streamers now, given all the pressure they're under right now, have really cut back on their presentation of independent film and TV content. Our goal is to go the other way and be sort of the Spotify of Cineverse, being the Spotify of independent streaming, and to present as many choices and as many channels as we possibly can, all wrapped around a technology that makes it the best user experience in the business. So that's where we're coming from.
So to piggyback off that, I am curious, how do you balance, consolidating and building up enough content to feed your own platforms and channels, while also still being a major supplier of content on the open market? Because it seems like now every major company is attempting to figure out that same equation that you guys have been operating on for quite some time.
Yeah. Again, I think the hallmark of our strategy is diversification and a portfolio approach to the business. We've got a subscription business, an AVOD business, a FAST business, a technology business, and importantly, we have a content business that includes content licensing and, releasing films and TV programs. That's really important to us. So you raise a really good point. And we're much more selective in terms of the amount of exclusive content that we think we need to have on our channels. We have a programming team that, one of the things that has helped us, because we've been in the business since 2015 in the streaming business, we've got an enormous amount of data on what we need in order to refresh our channels, what we need in order to create stickiness and the whole thing. So our programming people work with our acquisition people and our sales people all the time to tell them exactly how many new titles, how many exclusive titles do we need, per month in order to satisfy our audience. So we do that. And then the enormous amount of titles that we have, we sell to the rest of the industry on a non-exclusive basis. because that's a huge business for us that we're not going to give up. So it's a balancing act, but we're on it. And it's really aided and augmented by the fact that we have probably more data than anybody else on what we need and what works.
You don't have to convince me on the importance and effectiveness of data. I work for one of the best data companies.
Yeah, I know.
We are aligned, my friend. You know what? We can help each other out in the future. Now, you've previously publicly said that ad-supported and fast streaming is the single best part of the streaming business. How is Cinedime, which embraced both tiers back in 2018, uniquely positioned to benefit from the industry's newfound emphasis on AVOD, on fast? And why is the industry suddenly sprinting into the embrace of ad-supported?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the world changed in the last few years with the advent of connected TVs, and Roku's growth and the whole thing. And it really, they call it the lean back experience. They connected with the audience because they enabled the audience basically to go back to the old broadcast TV and cable TV world, lay back on their couch, right, and let somebody program, their viewing experience while they sit there on their mobile phone or whatever. And everyone was so focused on the subscription side of the business. I think we were prescient enough in 2016 to figure out where the world was going, and that we would get our brains beaten out if we tried to compete with the big streamers for subscribers, given the content costs and the marketing costs. So we pivoted into this space. So I think we launched our first FAST channel in 2017. So that experience with FAST and our Matchpoint technology backing it up, speed to market, the whole thing, really, I think, gives us a huge benefit in the business right now. And we've gotten to a scale where right now we're building our own in-house ad solutions group. Up until this point, we hadn't been at a scale really to directly sell advertising. So we're building that group. We've made some high-profile hires right now. And we think that, despite all the fears that people have about the ad market going forward, that the fact that, our ad business, we've had, I think, 10 straight quarters of triple-digit advertising growth. Okay, it's going to be tough to sustain that, but we feel that we can easily continue to grow at more than 50% because we're a little guy. We still have a lot of optimization to do in our advertising, fill rates, CPMs, all those things. And now we're going to be directly selling ourselves. And we're adding more channels, like the GoPro channel, which is going to be a fast channel, and there'll be other announcements. So we think we can continue to sustain growth going forward. We're glad that the rest of the industry ignored this space. It enabled us to get set up pretty well and to match our technology with FAST and to prove ourselves with all of the different platforms where our FAST channels are on. And we see, continued really, really strong growth in the space.
And you did mention that there are concerns about the ad market in 2023 with looming fears about a recession. And yet it does seem as if offering a bundle of services like ad solution licensing, your SaaS business.
Yeah.
It comes back to the diversification in offering a package of services and meeting very different needs across the spectrum, as opposed to just one pure play streaming service. It seems you're set up well for this market.
You're absolutely right. And, if the ad business slows down a little bit, we're going to more than make up for it. Our subscription business has grown. We're well over 1 million subscribers. Just with Terrifier 2 alone, we quadrupled the number of subscribers on Screenbox.
It's incredible.
We're talking about hundreds of thousands, not millions, but that's pretty good. And they're paying $4.99 a month. So we've got the subscription business. We've got the whole SaaS business with Matchpoint, and we're going to be making some announcements with some really significant partners in that regard soon. We've got our content licensing business. So diversification, I think, has really been the hallmark of our strategy. And, in times like this, that's where you need to rely on a portfolio of revenue streams. And I think we're probably the most diversified company in the streaming business, not just in terms of our portfolio of 30 channels, but in terms of our revenue streams as well. And I think that stands us in good stead going forward.
And feel free to announce those new upcoming content partnerships right now. Parrot Analytics.
No.
No, understood. So you mentioned, you guys have surpassed 1 million subscribers as of November. Is there a magic number, do you think, independent streaming companies like you guys need to hit? Or is it a lot more comfortable and long-term thinking because of the diversification that we've talked about, because of the wide array of businesses you have under the Cinedime umbrella?
Yeah, that's a very good question. As I said before, look at Crunchyroll, the Crunchyroll example. I think they had 1 million subscribers, or 2 million sold for $1 billion.
And I'm a Japanese animation fan, so I was a big fan of that.
Yeah, there's no magic number. Again, because our operating costs are really, really low, because we own our own technology, we don't have to, we don't have to have 1 million or 2 million subscribers in order to break even. We're much lower than that, and we can make a lot of money. And we haven't really invested in marketing to acquire subscribers over time. That 1 million plus subscriber number, it's kind of happened organically. As enthusiasts have found our channels, and the ones that have a subscription alternative, they've decided that they like the channel, they like the technology, and they'll go over the paywall and not have to sit through ads and get some extras. And also we're doing it through exclusive content, which you just saw with Terrifier 2. And we really think, with all of the struggles that AMC and networks and Shudder are experiencing right now, that we've got a real opportunity with Screenbox now to become the #1 enthusiast horror channel. But we're just going to continue to grow our subscription base organically and not throw money at it like a lot of other people have done, and we'll be just fine. But we do think that several of our channels ultimately have the potential to have more than 1 million subscribers, like Crunchyroll, and we'll continue to build toward that.
You've got a subscriber here, being able to feed my nerdy genre love for horror, for anime, even the Elvis Presley channel that launched last summer. I'm already in the ecosystem. I know you were worried about that, but you don't have to worry.
Okay.
You previously said that larger companies have reached out to Cinedime with potential acquisition interest several times. Given the tumultuousness of 2022, what do you see the merger and acquisition media market looking like in 2023?
I think it's going to be difficult. You got a lot of companies that are dealing with investor pressure right now, who are trying to get their act together and become cash flow and net income positive. By the way, we were net income positive last year, and I'm hopeful that by the end of this year, we'll be net income positive this year as well. So I think that's going to put a damper on it a little bit, but the fact is there are some good opportunities out there, and everybody's stock has been crushed, right, as a currency, but because everybody's stock has been crushed, you can get a deal done. And
there's value out there.
We did 7 acquisitions over the last couple of years, Screenbox and Fandor, and we bought out our partners, Foundation TV, and own our own technology, and Bloody Disgusting and DMR. And we're continuing to look at opportunities to acquire companies that will increase our scale, bring more content and more channels into Cineverse, and augment what we're doing from a technology standpoint. So we see, selective opportunities, or continue to look at it, but I think you're not going to see as much activity from the big boys as you've seen in the past.
Makes sense, given everything that's going on. There is value deals to be had, but everyone also wants to hoard their cash in-house for this inevitable rainy day. We've seen a lot of activity and ups and downs and peaks and valleys in 2022. We've talked about some of Cinedime's core tenets, but if you were to look at the whole industry holistically, is there one major takeaway, one major lesson you learned in the past 12 months for entertainment media?
Try to get out of your legacy businesses as quickly as possible. Don't strangle yourself with a tremendous amount of debt. We're basically debt free now. We were able to pay down all of our debt during COVID, which we feel really, really good about. And take a diversified approach to the business. I think that's hugely important. And that's why I think our stock's been crushed like everybody else, but I think from a business standpoint, we've been rolling and growing. We've doubled our workforce. We've increased our channel portfolio significantly. Our revenues were up like 80% overall last year. So we're continuing, and we're right there on the cusp of sustainable long-term profitability. And I think our diversification and the fact that we don't have any legacy businesses anymore has really helped us versus other people that aren't generating strong results like that.
You're nimble, you're lean, you can pivot quickly. It's important in this day and age.
Exactly.
Now, last question, and I'll get you out of here. You've said you're a big movie guy. If you could have dinner with one fictional character, who would it be and why?
Oh, man.
I'm putting you on the spot before we leave.
A fictional character?
Fictional character.
Well, I think my favorite movie, I have two favorite movies, Goodfellas, and then Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I love that movie.
Classics. One modern, one a little bit older.
And I knew Ray Liotta really well. I did a couple of movies with him. He was a friend, and it's so sad that he passed away.
Absolutely.
But I'd love to have a conversation with Henry Hill, who he played in Goodfellas. Not Ray, but Henry Hill. Because I just thought that was a fascinating performance. And in hindsight, he should have won the Academy Award for that performance. And it's just sad that he was just bursting out at that point and he got ignored. But maybe it'd be Henry Hill.
That's a solid answer. And, you know, I actually just recently tweeted that no disrespect to Kevin Costner or Dances with Wolves, but it still remains wild to me that they won Best Picture and Best Director over Goodfellas that year at the Oscars. I'm sorry, but that's
I completely agree. Hey, life's not fair, but.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. We really appreciate it. We couldn't be more excited to see what Cinedime has to offer in 2023 and beyond.
Thank you so much, Brandon. Take care.
I hope you enjoyed that video from our Global Demand Awards virtual festival. Reach out to us today and find out why some of the largest organizations around the globe are partnering with Parrot Analytics to solve some of their most pressing problems.